In ancient Rome, a thumbs up didn't mean good job, it meant death. In Arizona, it's literally illegal to let a donkey sleep in your bathtub. And once, the BBC convinced thousands of people that spaghetti grew on trees. From how hold music was invented by accident to the absurdly long name for the phobia of long words. Here are 20 random facts that will blow your mind. I bet you've heard of the phrase to throw your hat in the ring. Well, originally it meant you were looking for a fight. In the 1800s, boxing matches weren't held in fancy arenas. They took place in fields or taverns with crowds forming a rough circle as the ring. Challengers literally tossed their hats inside to signal their intent. So the next time someone says they're throwing their hat in the ring, just get ready. It's about to get wild. Someone once created a mobile game where the only way to score points was to toss your phone as high as you can into the air. Released in 2013, Send Me to Heaven used the phone's accelerometer to measure altitude, with the highest throw topping the leaderboard. But there was a twist. The game's creator openly admitted it wasn't meant to be about fun at all. He just despised consumer culture and designed the app in the hope that people would smash their expensive phones. And it worked. I mean, Apple banned it almost immediately, but not before countless phones met their end in an attempt to quite literally get a high score. Your tongue doesn't have specific zones for taste. There aren't any sweet or sour spots. It's all a myth. Those old diagrams showing sweetness at the tip, sourness at the sides, and bitterness at the back came from a mistranslation of an old German study. The study only found tiny variations in sensitivity, but the English version interpreted this as strict zones. And somehow that fake tongue map still shows up in school textbooks, but taste buds never got the memo. They can detect every flavour. Research shows 3 out of 4 parents secretly prefer one child over the others. A study tracking hundreds of families revealed that 74% of mothers and 70% of fathers confessed to having a favourite child. This so-called golden child was usually the one who mirrored a parent's personality, shared their hobbies, or was just simply easier to raise. So if a parent claims that they love their kids equally, chances are they only have one. There's a phobia of long words, and even the name itself is absurdly long. The official name is this. Sufferers experience crippling anxiety whenever they read, hear, or attempt to pronounce unusually long words. The phobia itself is one of the longest words in the dictionary. Just don't ask them to explain it, it won't end well. In Arizona, it's actually illegal to let a donkey sleep in your bathtub. This strange law dates back to 1924 when a rancher's donkey developed the odd habit of curling up in an old bathtub on his property. After a local dam burst, floodwaters swept the tub and donkey miles downstream. Saving the donkey took hours and took up an entire team of rescuers. So Arizona lawmakers decided to do the obvious thing: outlaw bathtub donkeys for good. The BBC once convinced thousands of people that spaghetti grew on trees. On April 1st, 1957, yes, April Fool's Day, their respected news program, Panorama, aired a segment showing Swiss families harvesting pasta from branches. The 3-minute clip, delivered like a genuine news report, was so convincing that thousands of viewers called in asking how they can grow their own spaghetti trees. But of course, it was all a hoax. It went down as one of the most legendary April Fool's pranks ever broadcast. The original deadline wasn't a due date. It was a literal line of death. During the Civil War, the infamous Andersonville prison, known for overcrowding, starvation, and disease, enforced a deadline, a boundary drawn inside the prison walls. Any prisoner who crossed it was shot on sight. The term lingered after the war, but by the early 20th century, deadline no longer meant a fatal boundary, but a figurative one. It describes the time limit you can't cross without consequence. Medieval medicine was impressive. I mean, they actually discovered a cure for werewolf bites. At least that's what an 11th century medical manuscript claimed. The recipe described crushing an assortment of wild, poisonous plants into a paste with wine, then smearing it onto the bite and reciting mysterious incantations and chants. Back then, medicine was more superstition than science. It's always good to get a thumbs up. Well, not if you're in ancient Rome. In gladiator arenas, that very same gesture could quite possibly be the last one you ever see. If the emperor showed a closed fist or a thumb pressed up against his palm, the fighter's life was spared. But a raised thumb meant only one thing: to deliver the killing blow. Ironically, over time, the meaning completely flipped. So, yeah, the world's friendliest gesture started as a death sentence. There's a myth that Roman elites had vomitoriums, special rooms where they would feast, then vomit it all up to make room for more. But it's exactly that, a myth. Romans did have vomitoriums, but the name is a little misleading. They were passageways built into large theatres and stadiums, designed to quickly spew forth crowds. The name comes from the Latin vomere, meaning to discharge. The whole vomit myth came centuries later and stuck, but in reality, vomitoriums were about crowd control, not digestion. There's a company that turns human ashes into vinyl records. For around $4,000, a loved one's remains can be pressed into the grooves of a playable album. They take around a teaspoon of ashes and mix it into the vinyl puck. This is the hot blob of plastic that gets pressed into the shape of a record. Families can pick music or simply spoken words. It's part memorial, part playlist, and honestly, the creepiest mixtape you'll find. People once believed that toads had magical jewels growing inside their skulls. They called them toadstones, small, dark, glossy gems said to neutralize the effects of poison. Jewelers set them into rings and protective amulets, prized as much for their supposed magic as for their rarity. But in reality, these weren't jewels at all. The mythical toadstone was nothing more than a fragment of bone from a toad's skull, a poor excuse for medieval bling. Meet the tiny shrimp with a claw so powerful it can literally create light. When the pistol shrimp snaps, it blasts out a jet of water so fast it forms a cavitation bubble, a pocket of vapor that appears when liquid is forced apart by extreme pressure. As the bubble collapses, the pressure surges and the temperature spikes to thousands of degrees. This is briefly hotter than the surface of the sun. This sudden burst of energy releases a faint flash of light. At barely 2 inches long, they're the Jackie Chan of the shrimp world. Have you ever noticed how cows in a field all face the same way? Probably not, but they do. Scientists studied thousands of herds using satellite images and found that cows naturally line up north-south while grazing or resting. The pattern is consistent across continents, regardless of terrain, weather, or time of day. But the weird thing is that no one exactly knows why. The leading theory being that cows are more sensitive to the Earth's magnetic field, some sort of strange internal compass. You can actually get a PhD in ufology. Yes, the study of UFOs. While mainstream universities aren't inclined to hand out alien diplomas, a few less reputable institutions willingly hand out advanced degrees. Courses cover everything from reported sightings and alleged abductions to bold theories about extraterrestrial civilizations. Pretty impressive. A doctor of UFOs. The word dude didn't always mean a laid back guy. It originally meant you looked like a complete clown. In the 1800s, a dude referred to a male obsessed with fashion, someone so overdressed they looked completely ridiculous. Think shiny shoes, flashy suits, and a strut worthy of the catwalk. Over time, it lost its edge. Dude went from mocking insult to the chilled out greeting we know today. Hold music wasn't invented on purpose. It was a total accident. In the early 1960s, entrepreneur Alfred Levy noticed something strange in his factory. A loose phone wire had come into contact with the building's steel frame. The metal structure acted like a massive antenna, picking up the local radio broadcast and feeding it directly into the phone line. Callers on hold suddenly heard music instead of dead silence. He realised that this made them less likely to hang up. And just like that, hold music was born. Japan's proudest 20th century invention wasn't the bullet train. It was instant noodles. The Fuji Research Institute surveyed 2,000 Tokyo residents to rank the century's top Japanese inventions, and the humble instant noodle came out on top. It beat out karaoke, the Walkman, and even the Shinkansen bullet train. So the next time you're slurping noodles at 2 a.m., just remember, you're basically dining on Japan's national treasure. Have you ever heard of hair ice? At first glance, it looks like someone glued cotton candy onto a dead branch, but it's actually a rare natural phenomenon. It only forms when three things line up: humid air, temperatures just below freezing, and a fungus called Exidiopsis effusa. The fungus releases chemicals that prevent the ice crystals from clumping, forcing water into the wood to ooze out as silky white strands as thin as human hair. People once predicted the future with cheese. Penguins propose with pebbles, and there's a deep sea fish that's completely transparent. It can literally see straight through its own head. Facts are what I'm about, and there's plenty more to enjoy. Thanks for supporting the channel. I'll see you next time.